Hey guys, welcome to Mad Scientist Barbecue. I'm Jeremy Yoder, and today we're going to do a little bit of experimenting. I want to find out if the steak temperature chart that we've all seen, there are lots of versions of them, they mostly overlap, but there are some differences. I want to find out if those are telling us the truth, or if they're maybe misleading us and causing us to overcook our steaks. If you guys don't know what the steak doneness chart is, you guys can see here that it has rare, medium, medium well, and well done at various different temperatures. And usually there's a pretty big overlap in the steak doneness charts. They might be different by a couple degrees. Usually it's something like rare is 120, maybe 125. Medium rare is maybe 130 to 135. Sometimes they even go up to 140. Medium well is maybe 145, and well done is going to usually be 155 plus. That's usually how they're set up. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't tell you how much carryover cooking you're going to get. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people miss. The cooking method has a huge impact on carryover cooking. So if you're doing sous vide, there's basically zero carryover cooking. It's going to be exactly that temperature. And if you're doing sous vide, then you're going to probably mimic exactly what the chart says in terms of steak doneness. But if you're cooking with high heat, like a fire, which is way more fun, let's just be honest. If you love sous vide, nothing against you. But for me, it's just way more fun to cook with a real fire. But if you're using a grill, or if you're using a pan, or if you're using some kind of high heat method, there's going to be some carryover cooking where the temperature that's high on the outside is going to allow heat to transfer from the outside toward the center of the steak and keep cooking the steak even after you pull it off the heat. Now, there are going to be some differences for a thick steak versus a thin steak. We're going to test that as well. But what I want to give you guys is hopefully a guide to keep yourself from making a big mistake in cooking the steaks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go get a New York strip. I'm going to season it with some salt. I'm going to sear it in this pan. I'm going to baste it with butter, garlic, and herbs. The way that is my absolute favorite way to cook steak. And we're going to take it all the way up to 130 degrees, like the chart says. And then we're going to cut into it and see how close to medium rare it actually is. And then we're going to do some more testing to find out how much carryover cooking you can expect from this cooking method. We're going to see how big of a difference there is for a thin steak versus a thick steak. And hopefully we're going to have a well-rounded picture of how you are going to be pulling your steaks off the grill or out of the pan or even out of the sous vide bag in the future to make sure you have the exact results you want every single time. All right, we got New York strips. I'm going to hit it with just some sea salt, diamond crystal if you're sophisticated. And then I'm going to heat up the pan. Then in the pan, I'm going to use a healthy dollop of this Wagyu beef tallow. Super good stuff. And we're going to sear the steak first. Now, a lot of people want to do a reverse sear because you can more accurately get the temperature to where you want it before you attempt to sear it at the end. And while I understand and appreciate that method, what I found is usually you don't get the sear on the steak that you actually want. It's kind of a so-so sear, but that's where all the flavor is. So my top priority is get that flavor on the sear and then nail the doneness so that we get the best of both worlds rather than having a perfectly done steak, but no real crust on the outside to speak of. So I'm going to get a crust first, and then we're going to baste in butter and bring it up to temperature, and then we're going to let it rest on this trivet, and we're going to wait probably 5 or 10 minutes, and we're going to cut it open and see if our temperature of 130 degrees let us get exactly the medium rare that we want. So we have a great sear on this side. We already got a great sear on this side, but the internal temperature is only in the mid-70s. So at this point, we're going to baste it with butter, garlic, and herbs. It's just a really flavorful way to kick up the experience you have when you eat a steak. But we still have a long way to go till we get to that medium rare 130 or 135. We're going to pull it at 130. But at this point, we've gotten a great sear on both sides, and we're nowhere near overcooking the steak yet. Let me throw in some butter, some garlic, some thyme, and some rosemary. Then I'll baste it. We'll pull it at 130, and then we're going to see, is this really medium rare, or is it a little too far? So we're basting this. It's smelling absolutely incredible. I'm gonna flip it over, baste the other side, and then hopefully we'll be close to that 130 doneness that we're trying to get to. Woo, look at that crust. $117. If you like the sound of sizzling steaks, hit the subscribe button for more fun and informative barbecue content. We appreciate it, guys. All right, we're at 128. I think that's close enough, but keep in mind we're pulling this off even just a little bit before it hits 130. So I'm gonna take this, put it on a wire rack, and let it cool. Man, this thing looks good. I already know that I've way overcooked that steak, but I can tell you it's still gonna be delicious just because of the method that we used. Remember, we pulled this steak at an internal temperature of 128. I'm gonna temp the steak after 5 minutes, and then again after 10 minutes. We're gonna see how much it climbs after we're done cooking. Been resting 5 minutes, let's check. Ooh, look at that. All the way up to 153. Let's wait 5 more, temp it again, then slice it open. All right, it's been 10 minutes. Let's see what the temp is. 152, looking dangerously close to well done, even though we pulled it at 128. We can see the steak increase in temp in real time. So, what does this mean? Carryover cooking really matters, especially depending on the kind of cooking that you're doing. A grill is different than a pan, is different than a smoker, is different than sous vide. So make sure you know your method and how much carryover cooking to expect. So let's cut this open and see what we've got. By the way, I have sanitized this cutting board, in case anybody's wondering. But the crust, oh, looks so good. And it's still hot on the outside. Okay, let's take one from the dead center. So this obviously does not look like medium rare to me. Juicy, yes, definitely not medium rare. Let's taste it and see what it tastes like. It tastes so good. Even though this thing is almost well done, I would totally eat that. So, taking a bite of this, tastes incredible, but it's tough and chewy. Why? Because it's overcooked, even though we pulled it at 128. If you guys can see here, the cooking method we chose kept everything juicy. You know, this isn't a particularly well-marbled steak. This is a choice New York strip, and there's just juice pouring out of it. So we haven't dried it out, but we definitely have overcooked it. It went up to 153 after we pulled it at 128. That's an increase of 25 degrees. That is serious carryover cooking. And it's gonna mean that if you're pulling it at the temperature you want it to be done at, you're not gonna be anywhere close. So 25 degrees of carryover cooking. If we extrapolate that and we want to finish at 130, we probably actually wanna pull our steak at something closer to 105. And what I found is that a temperature of 108, actually using this method, gives me the perfect results that I want. So we're gonna repeat all this. I'm gonna pull it at 108 and we're gonna see if that's about right. So typically, to get a medium rare, I want to pull it at about 22 degrees below what I want it to finish at. Because the longer you go, in this case we went all the way up to 128, the more you're putting heat into that steak and the carryover cooking becomes even greater. So typically 108 to 110 is where I found that it comes out the best. Usually though, 108 is the sweet spot. We're gonna test it again for this method, pulling way earlier than you might think. By the way, we're talking about steak temperatures here, and if you don't have a digital instant read thermometer, you absolutely need to have one. Today, I'm using this Lightning from ThermoPro, and I want to thank ThermoPro for sponsoring today's video. It's absolutely essential that if you're cooking meat with fire, that you have a digital instant read thermometer. There are two tools that I use frequently. One is a shovel to manage the fire in my smokers. The other is a digital instant read thermometer. I buy these, I give them away to people, and it is transformative to the quality of your cooking. You can use it not only for cooking meat with fire, you can use it to temp things in the kitchen. I even temped my wife's red wine the other day to make sure that it was the proper serving temperature. You can use it for any number of purposes, but it drastically improves the quality of your cooking. With the ThermoPro Lightning, you get a number of very important features. One is the IP65 waterproof rating. Another is the 1-second response time. You have a backlit screen, an auto-rotating display, a temperature lock feature, and here's the biggest thing. Right on the outside of the box, it gives you a 10-year warranty. Now, a lot of times people fear getting thermometers that aren't the most expensive because they're afraid, oh no, what if something goes wrong? But the 10-year warranty, you can rest assured that that thing is something you can rely on for not only today and tomorrow, but 10 years from now, it's still going to be providing exactly what you need in terms of giving you the right temperature to make sure your food turns out perfect. A digital instant read thermometer is a tool that you absolutely have to have, but one thing that's really going to help backyard barbecuers and people who are cooking things like steak when you're trying to nail the temperature exactly is this, the Temp Spike Plus. They're two leave-in wireless probes that will constantly monitor the temperature of whatever you're cooking. So you're not temping something and then you temp it again and realize that you've overshot the mark. This is going to give you a constant readout of what the temperature is. This is going to be super helpful to you if you're doing a brisket low and slow and you want to hit that 203 just right, or if you're doing a steak and you want to be absolutely sure you don't miss it when it hits your desired temperature. One of the coolest benefits of the ThermoPro Temp Spike Plus is that you can monitor all your temperatures from your phone. Whether you're talking about monitoring the internal temperature of a brisket, like we have set right here, you can have alarms that work on both the internal temperature of the meat as well as the ambient temperature. So if you're running an offset smoker, you know if the temperature is dropping or if the temperature is climbing, and you're always aware of what's going on. You can also use the other probe completely independently. So you can set a different internal temperature target. You can make it 155 or 203 or 178 or anything that you want to make sure that you get the results that you need every single time. So I talked to the folks over at ThermoPro, and they're willing to do a special deal for only my viewers. It doesn't exist anywhere else on the internet. There are no other content creators who have this deal. But if you buy this Temp Spike Plus at a discount, they will throw in a Lightning for free. So you get this, and you get this for free with a multi-year warranty. There's really no way to lose. I'll put this in the description below. You can click on it and go check it out. I'll put it in the pinned comment. And if you want $10 off any other ThermoPro item, just use the code MADSCIENTIST10 to get $10 off. This is simply the best deal you're going to find anywhere. All right, we're going to do round two. So this is another New York strip from the same package. They're about 1.5 inches thick. And we're going to repeat the process, except the only thing we're going to change is we're going to pull it off of the heat 22 degrees before the internal temperature of the steak matches the steak doneness chart. So a lot of resources will say you can get 5 degrees of carryover cooking, maybe up to 10 degrees. But I think, especially with this method, that you're going to get even more than that. So don't overcook your steaks. Let's see if 22 degrees is the right answer. All right, I think we're coming right up on it. 107.6, 7.4. It's time. On both sides, we got a great sear on that side, great sear on that side. Let me move it out of this ray of sunshine so you can get a better look at it. I'm just gonna let that hang out above it. I'm gonna tempt this again in 5 minutes and then again in 10 minutes. Remember, it was 107.6 when we just pulled it off. We're gonna see what it climbs up to. And the other thing that's really important to know about this process is that if you have a wire rack, if you're doing it this way, you can always put it back on the heat if it needs to climb a few more degrees, but you can never remove heat that's already been added. So if you've gone too long, say you're basting and you hit 120, it's too far because you're gonna keep climbing and overcook your steak. So we're gonna see if 22 degrees is gonna be the magic number for 1.5 inch thick steak cooked with this basting method. And then we're gonna move on to direct heat with just a pan, no basting, and then finally with a grill. How much carryover can you expect? And then we're going to test if there's more carryover with a thick steak or with a thin steak. And then from all that info, hopefully you guys are going to be equipped to be able to do it just the way you want. 5 minutes later, 126. It's climbing dangerously close to the temperature that we're after. We're going to give it another 5, temp it one more time, then slice it open. 10 minutes of rest. Here we go. Look at that. Right in medium rare land. Exactly what we want to see. Look at that crust. So good. Let's see how we did. This looks great. Let's give it a taste. So good. So looking at this slice, I said it's exactly how I wanted, but it might be just slightly more cooked. And for being transparent here, it's because I got to the temperature that I wanted, then I had to go get Erica to grab the camera. Hey, we got to film pulling this thing off. But that was maybe an extra 60 seconds. But yeah, it will definitely do a lot of carryover cooking. So this is juicy, it's tender, it's how I like my steak. So now let's test what kind of carryover cooking we get if there's no basting and we just sear it on a hard surface using conduction like in this pan. So here we have medium rare, even on the end, exactly what we're looking for. And then if we look at the opposite end where it's nice and thick, we still have medium rare. So this method can absolutely 100% work. You can infuse all those flavors. Just remember, you got to pull it early. My recommendation is 22 degrees before the temperature you actually want to reach. All right, we're going to repeat this process, except we're only going to be using direct heat. No basting this time, because we want to see how much carryover cooking we get from just direct heat conduction through the pan itself without spooning hot liquid over the top. Direct heat, no basting. We're going to pull it at 120 and see how much it carries over. My guess is going to be between 8 and 10 degrees, which should give us a really nice medium rare. Still got a long way to go. All right, 120, time to pull this guy off. 5 minutes of resting, temperature check. It's looking pretty good. So it's looking like it's climbed about 15 degrees. After 5 more minutes, we're gonna slice it open and see what it looks like. 10-minute rest, let's slice it open. After 10 minutes, it went up another 3 degrees, so it increased by 18 degrees. So it went to 138. So we have kind of a medium here. Still super juicy, still good. Let me taste it. Don't mind if I do. It tastes great. So to recap, if you're basting, I think probably 22 to 25 degrees for a 1.5 inch thick steak. If you're doing direct heat, I think it's probably best to pull your steak 15 to 18 degrees before you think it's actually going to be done. We're going to prep one more New York strip. We're going to put it on the grill, and we're going to see how much carryover cooking there is there. We're going to pull that one again at 120. Next up, we're going to grill in this PG 500 pellet grill. We actually have this on the website, but it has a direct heat side and an indirect heat side. So this is indirect, this is direct heat. And so the fire pot is directly under this heavy duty grill grate, so it's going to work great to grill without having to light a bunch of charcoal or anything like that. And the other thing is, I can dial this thing up to like 600 degrees. So let's get this thing rocking and see where we go. So right now it's, I guess it was set at 250. Let's dial it all the way up. That's hot. This grill is at 532 and climbing. This is a pre-salted New York strip from the exact same package we've been using. The reason why I'm using pre-cut steaks is because I want them all the same thickness. And this is just an easy way to ensure consistency throughout the different steaks we're testing. So I have some spray beef tallow, so that's gonna help it sear. Just coat one side, I'm gonna coat the other, and then put it on. It's a raging inferno. Let's give that a minute, then flip it, and then we're gonna keep going until it hits 120. How am I gonna know? Handy dandy, it's a thermometer. For those who will invariably ask, we're using Naughty Wood almond Cabernet pellets for this. Really flavorful and works great because it produces a ton of heat. All right, this is looking good. Starting to get some cross hatches on there. So we're just gonna keep this thing going until it hits 120. Been a few minutes, let's check. I'd say that's close enough to 120. Yeah, let's go ahead and pull it. Alrighty then. Smells really good. Checking the temp in 5, then in 10 minutes, then we slice it open. After 5 minutes of rest, let's see. Looks like about 8 degrees. We're gonna wait 5 more minutes, temp it one more time, slice it up. 10 minutes of resting, let's see. Trying to go for directly in the middle. 129 point something. This could be the first one that's perfectly medium rare. Go figure. So looks like it went up by 9.5 degrees, something like that. Let us cut into it and find out. Man, this smells good. It smells like a fire, but in the best possible way. That's gorgeous. Gorgeous George. This one looks kind of maybe somewhere between medium rare and medium, and it could just be these steaks. They might have a different look to them because the feel, the texture is like a medium rare texture, but the color is definitely lighter than what I'm used to with medium rare. It could just be these steaks. I don't ever cook these, but the temperature is the temperature, and ultimately it's going to come down to how it eats. So let's see. Man, that is good. That eats like medium rare. Like I said, I don't ever really cook these steaks. I just see them every time I go to Costco. The color is a little weird, so I'm gonna cook, for the last experiment, a steak that I'm very familiar with. I'm gonna cook 2 fillets. One is gonna be at least 2 inches thick, and one's gonna be maybe 1 inch thick, and we're gonna see if you get more carryover cooking from a thick piece of meat or a thin one. As you may be able to tell, it is now dark. This has been an all-day process. After the test we did with those New York strip steaks, I did some online research, and I found out that those steaks at Costco are mechanically tenderized or blade tenderized. I don't know if that affected the color, maybe had absolutely nothing to do with it. So I got another Costco cut that is not blade tenderized. I have a whole tenderloin here, and this is gonna allow me to cut one of these very thick, minimum 2 inches, and I'll cut one thin, maybe about 1 inch. And we're gonna test the carryover cooking for both of those, and we're gonna use these guys. Since we have 2 steaks, I want to monitor them independently, and we'll pull them off and get the temperature right when they get pulled off and how much they climb in temperature from carryover cooking to hopefully give you guys the best information when it comes to cooking these steaks. We're going to do these like the very first steaks. We're going to sear them in the stainless steel pan, and then we're going to baste them with butter and garlic and all the herbs that I love so much. And then we're going to watch them climb in temp even after they get pulled off. So I'm going to cut a couple of these and then we'll get started. It's always nice to have a sharp knife. This is going to be more stew.
Awesome.
By the way, if you get a whole tenderloin and you have these pieces that you separate off from the main barrel, don't throw them away. I don't even suggest grilling them. If you use them in a stir fry or a stew, it is going to be like $1 million stew. You're going to be like, why is this stew meat so good? Because usually stew meat is not very good, which is why you turn it into stew. But when you take these offcuts, they're tender like filet, and they just really absorb flavor. So highly recommend that if you have the opportunity. Okay, I'm going to cut one of these nice and thick, both of them from the barrel here. We'll go this guy. That looks pretty good. And I'm thinking about this far. We're going to measure these after, but I want them to be significantly different. Okay, there we go. And then something smaller, like this. My dinner, Erica's dinner. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. And the rest of these, you don't have to turn into stew. You can cut them into more steaks. But we cut this one real thick. Let me get my handy dandy tape measure. So this one is, however tall that is. So Erica's telling me this one is 1.5, and that looks about right. And this beefy guy right here is?
That one's like 2.5.
Erica's telling me that this big one is about 2.5. That looks about right. Let me, oh, it's not completely even. I should do a better job of cutting. That's about 2.5. So we got 1.5 and 2.5. And so we got definitely thinner and thicker. And so we're going to see what this does to carryover cooking. You guys know the drill at this point. Now we salt. On this big one, it's especially important that we salt generously and salt the sides because we need maximum salt penetration. For a steak this thick, I would salt it actually the night before you want to cook it. But for the sake of science, we're just gonna go quickly through this. It won't affect the cooking very much at all, but we'll just add a little bit of finishing salt at the end. Boom, let that salt penetrate for a minute. Get this pan hot. Oh yeah, she's toasty. Putting this thermometer in, going in right in the center, and hopefully that should give us a nice and accurate picture. This thing, same thing. I'm gonna go right in the center. Really be putting these things through their paces here. Current temperatures, 43 and 41. Got a long ways to go. A few seconds in, already starting to brown. That's a good sign. Beautiful. Let's flip it. This steak is nicely seared. I'm going to set it aside for a second while I finish searing this one. To put it in perspective, the internal temp of the one that we just pulled off that we haven't basted yet is 100 degrees. The internal temp of that big steak that's in there, 48 degrees. So very different. That's 102 and 50. When I said it, it was 148. But yeah, now it's 102 and 50. So 52 degree difference currently. Got a good crust on this side now. I'm gonna get this pan ready. By the way, we pulled off the thick steak at a temp of 54. The thin steak we pulled off at a temperature of 99. So we'll keep that in mind for the end too. Get off of there. Ooh. One of the best things about cooking outside is that I'm far less concerned with creating a mess. I'm not concerned at all about creating smoke. This smells absolutely incredible, by the way. Garlic, herbs, and butter. Of course it's gonna smell like $1,000,000. Jeez. All right, we got this mixed up. Let's start basting some steaks. $117, we're just gonna do this for a couple minutes here. Okay, I'm pulling this guy off. For Erica, her steak came off at an internal temp of 117. So we just basted it, we pulled it off. I'm gonna do the big steak now and we're gonna see how much that goes up. Ah, that one just went up, 118. Let's see how much it increases. Okay. The big steak increased to 81 degrees before it went back in. So that's significant. Increased by 30 degrees just from searing, not even basting. So the thicker the steak, it looks like, the more carryover cooking that you get because all of those layers retain lots of heat energy that will eventually make their way toward the middle. So let me get to basting, and I'm probably gonna pull this thing off at 100. If we're estimating 30 degrees of carryover. Here we go. Let's put all this crap on there. Whatever, it's all good. $12 more degrees, I'm gonna pull it at 100. The thin piece went up to 131, now it's back down to 129. The thick piece is still on its way up. It is currently 100 degrees. We're gonna see how high it goes. So from 117 to 131 is 14 degrees on the very thin steak. The thick steak, let's see. So we've rested the big steak now for 5 minutes and the temp has come up to 115. We're halfway there. So hopefully after 10 minutes, we're hanging out right at 130 as a finish temp, maybe even 128. And I think we're gonna slice into this thing and it's gonna be really good. The thinner steak has already begun to cool. So it got up to a peak temperature of 131 and then it went down to 129 and now it's all the way down to 124. So it hit its max temp quicker, but I think it's also cooling quicker and doesn't reach as high of a carryover max temperature. So the big steak is now up to 117. Let's see. Almost 7 minutes in, the thick steak is now warmer than the thin steak. Thin is down to 120, thick steak is up to 124. They kind of switched positions. 3 more minutes, we're gonna see. It's really cool to be able to monitor these in real time. You know, usually you have to check, but here it's just right here. You just look at it, boom, there it is. Not bad. Big steak up to 126, got 2 minutes left, we're gonna find out. Alrighty, here we have Erica's steak. This one was only being basted for a very short period of time, so we didn't see the full, 25 degrees or so that we might expect, but let's see if we cooked it right. And this is from my wife. If I didn't cook it right, then I have to deal with it. So we're going to find out. All right, this looks like a nice piece. And that is exactly what I'm looking for. Erica doesn't want me to eat her steak, but I can tell you that this is going to be delicious. When I cook a steak, this is exactly how I want it to be. I want it to look like this. I want it to be tender like this. I want it to be juicy like this. And because it was only in the basting liquid for maybe 45 seconds or a minute, I didn't expect the full 25 degrees. And so I pulled it at 117 and it only went up 14 degrees. Now the bigger steak was, being basted for probably 2 or 3 minutes. And so I expected the full 25 plus degrees. So this, exactly how I want to turn it out. I don't want to mess with it too much because Erica's going to eat this. I got to say, this is exactly how I want a steak. Oh, Erica's going to eat one. Hold on. Let me show even the end piece. Look, guys, even the end piece, exactly the way I want it. All right, I won't hold you back any longer, Erica. What do you think? How does it look? Yes, sorry. How's it taste?
Amazing.
Here we go. We're at 129. The goal was 130. I'll take 129. We still have maybe 45 seconds left before we hit the 10-minute mark. But we'll slice that one open here in just a second. Take a look. Gotta be honest with you guys, that was a good confidence booster because the temps were all working out exactly kind of how I thought that they would from previous experience, but they all looked kind of pinker and less red than I was expecting them. But cooking this steak that hasn't been blade tenderized, it's reassuring to know that I haven't lost my mind. Let's check out this guy right here. Maybe we should start on this end. There we go. This is exactly how I like my steaks cooked. That's the exact doneness that I want. Remember, we pulled this off at 100 degrees because we were basting it. The inside is medium rare, exactly the way I like it. Even though this is a relatively lean cut, this is only USDA choice. It's still super juicy. And so the point of the entire video is this. The steak doneness chart is useful, but only as a final temperature. And so we're going to put on the screen right here the adjustments that I suggest making. Okay, so first of all, if you're doing basting, assume probably an additional 25 degrees or so. If you're doing direct heat searing, you should assume maybe an extra 18 degrees, maybe 15 to 18 degrees, something like that. If you're doing grilled, like whether it's charcoal or a gas grill or whatever, you should assume even a little bit less. And then finally, the thicker the steak, the more carryover cooking you get. And so hopefully all of that information gives you great success with cooking and eating steaks in the future. I'm quite pleased with this. Carryover cooking matters a lot. Don't fall for the stumbling block that is, oh no, I cooked it exactly to the temperature that the steak doneness chart said and it was way overcooked. It totally depends on how rapidly you're applying heat to that food product. So basting, you're applying heat from the top and the bottom and the sides and everywhere around. So you're gonna have a lot of carryover cooking. If you're doing grilling, then you're really mostly getting one side, then you have some convection that's going around the steak that's cooking it with air, and then with conduction just searing on a pan, that's gonna be somewhere in between. So I hope you guys learned something from this. I hope this helps you. Cheers. Oh, that one's freaking good. You wanna try?